My name is Elisa Mendonça. I am director of Colanza, and today we're going to do this talk about the false solutions for agro-food systems. Uh, I I have the support to read because I am Brazilian, and then speaking English is a challenge. Speaking English in public, it is a challenge, but let's let's do it. So as I said, as I said, my name is Elisa, and I work in Colanza, that is the Latin American Caribbean Nutrition and Health Community of Practice. Colanza is a network of professionals, investigators, civil societies, and we working together. And we are working together in a collaborative environment to promote healthy, sustainable, equitable, and inclusive food systems. Um, and today we bring together more than 27 professionals and 35 members organizations around 20 countries. So this talk we are organizing in oh, sorry, I'm a little bit distracted. We are organizing this talk in two moments. We have our speakers, that is Paula Jones, that is director of ACT, and Samantha Fabris. Um, where is your presentation? Oh my. Samantha Fabris, that is analyst research analyst with the Health and Sustainable Food Program at IDEC. So I will ask her some questions about our theme. So we are talking here today about the food agro-system false solutions. When you're talking about transforming our food system, agro-food systems, we often hear about solutions that promise quick fixes to hunger, malnutrition, climate change, or inequality. But many of these are that we are calling false solutions. Many times, ideas that sound promising, but actually strengthen the same industrial models that create these problems at the first place. As we see we see this every year during COP sessions where governments, private sectors, representatives, producers associations, and also civil society organizations debate the best way to forward to transform our agro-food systems. Some of these proposals rely too heavily on technology or marketing mechanisms, overlooking the social, cultural, and environmental realities that that relies on the communities most affected. As we look for ways to move forward, we must remember that there is no single answer. There is no way to fix our agri-food systems. These are complex challenges that requires coordinated and complementary responses, reflecting to the diversity of our agri-food systems and territories. We also have to ask ourselves, who has access to these solutions? And who is being left behind? A strategy that works in one place might not work in another. Here, in the middle of a rainforest, our realities, our ecosystems, and our communities are unique, and so must be the paths we choose toward the truly sustainable and inclusive food systems. So, to begin our conversation, I want to ask to Samantha, as a representative of an organization that works to defend consumers' rights as a DEC, IDEC identify false solutions in this agenda, which could lead consumers to make uninformed choices.
Thank you, Elisa. So, as Elisa presented me, I am Samantha. I work in IDEC, which is the Institute for Consumers Defense here in Brazil. I know it sounds like a governmental space, but no, we are an NGO that is almost 40 years now fighting for rights. And as the years are passing, we are every time more facing consumers as people of rights, especially in a space like Brazil, a country like Brazil, with so many inequalities. So we work in different programs. We have programs like the telecommunication program, the health program, the sustainable consumption program, and the energy. And me, myself, and a big team, we work in the health and sustainable food program, where we look especially to how the food system is in a general way and trying to pressure for public policies and producing also scientific content and communicating with the society, and also putting big industries and companies into the justice too, trying to guarantee people's rights. And when we are talking about agri-food system, Elisa said about solutions. And I think when we talking about solutions, we need to first to understand what's the problem. And when we are talking about what's the problem, we are facing a very homogenic system that is homogenic from the production to the consumption in a very globalized, very high technological way. So the problem we are facing here is as the time is passing, we are having less diversification of the food, more harmonization of the food, and we are every time less connected people to nature and the product to the path it has made to arrive in the supermarkets and in our plates. So this disconnection between ourselves as human beings and the nature, and the disconnection from the product, from its path, from how it was produced, from who produced it, is the big problem that we are facing. But when we talk about climate change, and not change anymore, the climate crisis, we are talking about a system that's very present and really contributes to this climate crisis. But a lot of times the solutions are faced just like the problem is the gas emissions, and that if we solve it by itself, we solve all the problems. But when we are talking about climate crisis, we are also talking about ecosystem, about different people, about different realities that face and that feel this crisis in different ways. So it's not enough to look only to gas emissions and disconsider all this background. And at multiple times, the food industry and the agribusiness, they co-opt some good ideas that come from other spaces and they transform it in marketing. So what we are seeing a lot now is a lot of green labels that should be used to inform better consumers who have the power to choose, because that's not a reality for everyone, to better choices, but we understand that's not what's happening. So a lot of times this sustainability has been seen as a marketing tool, as a tool to promote companies, as a tool to promote industries, more than as actually a way to inform people about the origin and the real characteristics from that product. So that's a reflect of a very not transparent and untraceable food system, where we lost track of where it was produced, who produced it, how it was transported to where we are. And then we face a lot of problems with this fragmentation of the chains, the food chains. And then by that, because of this fragmentation, it's easy for the industry to use labels to propose eco-friendly or green labels that a lot of times are not. Then I will talk very quickly, so we have time to discuss more, about an example we are looking at as IDEC, which is the ultra-processed products sold as plant-based products. And I know maybe a lot of you are from other countries and the reality is different. So maybe you have industrialized plant-based options, which are good options and make it easier for every day. But in Brazil, there are a lot of products coming to the supermarket that sell itself as like meat analogs and as friendly to the climate, friendly to the planet, and friendly to your health. But when you read the ingredient list, if you eat a burger, a nuggets, meat, filet, you are eating the same thing. The ingredients are the same, just changing the flavors, the flavorizing, the colorants. So it has a lot. It has a lot of additives, chemical additives, which is already a problem for health once we understand the problems that ultra-processed food can be a damage for our health, but is also, and in my opinion, the most greenwashing about it, related to the meat packers. So one of the biggest companies nowadays that sells these plant-based ultra-processed products is from JBS, which is one of the biggest climate destructors. So that is incoherent, and then a lot of it's also expensive. So you buy 2 hamburgers for like 30 reais, and if you would make a vegan hamburger in your home, that's your purpose, or you would buy a vegan hamburger from someone that sells in your city, would be much cheaper, but they charge a lot because they say they are eco-friendly. They say they are changing the planet and changing how we connect to the nature. There are even like sentence or affirmation allegations like good for the planet, good for your health, friend from the climate. So that's just a quick start for us to start thinking about it. I appreciate it, and let's keep talking.
Thank you, Samantha. When you were saying, I was remembered that we have a lot of plant-based milk in the market that is so ultra-processed, must be only nuts and water, and has everything. And I am a consumer of this kind of product, so I really need to read to understand what I'm going to drink, because it's very hard and is a oh, this is health, is plant-based. So this is a very concerned thing. So Paula, as happened with the tobacco industry decades ago, the food industry relies on false arguments to oppose higher taxes on products that are harmful to health. Why is it still so difficult for decision makers to incorporate population health in this equation?
Thank you, Elisa, and thank you, Samantha, for giving a really good overview. I think of like some of the structural issues. Well, just a brief introduction of what we do. We Act Health Promotion. We work with like promoting policies to make like the environments healthier, so that it's easier to make the healthy choice. And we started our work in tobacco control like over 20 years ago around the Framework Convention on Tobacco Control. And we have expanded the scope of work since 2013, 2011 to deal with the other risk factors for non-communicable diseases. And here we'll focus on like the quality of the diets. We know that like the poor quality of diets is associated with like a big part of the burden on non-communicable diseases, which is the biggest killer today in the world, over 70% of the population. So we have seen much of the same narrative as we have had with the tobacco industry in the past, in terms of like what should we do to change like this style of how the diet transitions, because what's happening is that people are moving away from like homemade foods and like foods that you grow and you eat, into like more processed diets, and that's that's the reasons for why NCDs are also increasing. And one of the ways to stop it, it's like regulating. I mean, how do you place those ultra-processed foods in the market? So in that sense, if you look at the segment of food, just the ultra-processed foods category, which I might say how the crowd here is familiar with that concept because it's a Brazilian-born concept. Are we all okay with ultra-processed foods? I mean, in terms of like the concept, or we can talk a little bit more about that if needed. But the idea is that we need to have some sort of regulations, like to close, like the thing of it should not be growing the percentage of consumption of ultra-processed foods at the populational level. And it's important to say, one of the biggest, like if we think about false solutions, is when the industry overall in any area, be it climate, tobacco, and food, when they claim that it's an individual responsibility. I think that's the biggest one. It's your fault because you don't turn off the water when you brush your teeth, or it's your fault that you eat the wrong foods, or it's your fault that you drink too much and that you smoke. I mean, we want to move away because I think that's one of the biggest challenge in terms of the narrative. It's not. It's like it's the environment we live in that will make it easier or not to not do those type of things as well, right? So it's not so much. So I think that's the biggest false solutions proposed by the industry in general. And in the specific case of foods, like in Brazil, we are still lucky that it's only 20% of our diets that it's based on ultra-processed foods, and that's kind of okay average, because 80% of our diet it's based on real foods. But if the trend continue like it went in the like more so-called more developed countries, in which you have countries in which the percentage of ultra-processed food is up to 60%, 70%, that's really bad for our health. And how can we stop that trend? We should regulate the ultra-processed foods categories in the same way as we have regulated tobacco, for example. We need higher taxes. And let's just take the example of sugary beverage. We need to have higher taxes on sugary beverage. I mean, that's the first step in the ladder, that it's much bigger. But I mean, a very basic first step, such as we also have excise taxes for tobacco products and for alcohol, which is a very effective policy. And then we have a group of effective policies that we should be looking for in terms of that segment of ultra-processed foods, which is marketing restrictions, information for the consumer. We have advanced in Brazil, and thanks to the leadership of IDEC in having front of package labeling in ultra-processed products in general. And you have to have like healthy environments, and one of the basic ones is like school environments, but we should also be talking about hospitals, prisons, and other institutional environments that we can really change the environment about controlling what type of food you offer in that space. So these are like the 4 major policies. But instead of that, I mean, we talk it from being at the front, I mean, being at the forefront of promoting those policies. What we face is like those ultra-processed food industry arguments saying that, wow, you cannot do that, this is not effective because we'll like lose that many jobs, and I mean, people will not have jobs anymore, not be able to buy food and so on. This doesn't work. I mean, high prices do not work, marketing restrictions do not work. I mean, this is the argument. And then from our end, when you think, come on, if marketing did not work, why would you invest so many billions in marketing your products, right? I mean, I think that's one of the basic premises, that it's completely false. But actually, they do manage to convince policymakers that, wow, this is not effective. So I think this is the biggest obstacle that we face as civil society organizations working towards having a stronger regulation of ultra-processed foods. So I think this is because when we connect climate and health and climate and food, we need to work from production to consumption, what type of regulatory measures you need towards along that continuum from production to consumption. And I think I'll leave it for that now so we can...
Não sei, a gente faz mais uma rodada ou a... So we are... Okay. Okay. We are thinking about another round of questions, but I think if you want to, the best part is to participate. Everybody participates. So if someone wants to ask some questions or do some comments, please. I think you need to come here.
Thank you. It's not gonna. Okay. I'm Louise from the Vegetarian Society of Denmark, and thank you for having me on this discussion. Just a little bit more hesitant talking about plant-based, ultra-processed food, because I still think like one of the first things also for Brazil, definitely from Denmark, we have a high meat consumption, and I think that is one of the primary things that we need to focus on. How do we get more plants into people? Pulses, lentils, vegetable, fruit, whole grains. And I also want just to state, if you haven't seen it, there is a study done by PAN, Physician Association, which actually look at different type of process, like even they call ultra-processed food, really to kind of saying like even plant-based, they have more fiber, less salt, and less sugar as well. And it's actually looking into it's much more related to beverages. So just being very mindful when we talk about like plant-based food and also ultra-processed plant-based foods, I would just really want to be mindful that studies are showing that these are much better still than their analogies from the meat alternative. And also for us, working with it, I would love to see more whole food plant-based food cooked from scratch, but we also know that we as consumer eat food differently, so also having options for people who want to transition to more plants, making it easier if you have something that looks like a burger sometimes, because you know what to do with it. So it's also just like we are different people, we need to do it differently, we still need to have people eating more plants, and we need to do it in a variety of different ways. But preferably the most healthy ones, and that we should of course always work with as well. So a comment more than a question, sorry.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate very much your comment. To start, of course, here in Brazil we have a great problem about how much meat people eat, and it's a problem that's increasing actually, not decreasing. Which is a problem that we must look at. It's urgent to look at. It's incoherent to talk about the connections about food and the climate crisis without talking about meat, which is one of the main problems we have, that in emission gases, deforestation, and everything. The main point is, as you said, we want people to eat more real food. And when we are talking these plant-based products that we are calling ultra-processed, the ones that we are looking at, it's not like demonizing it. It's just we have questions about it, and I think one of the most is who can buy it. So we cannot propose a food system change that only rich people, medium-class people can buy and afford it. Everyone should be able to access real food. That's why when we talk about the food system transformation, we need to think structurally. So public policies, health meals at school, more diversified meals in public spaces, more investment in familiar agriculture. Of course, plant-based burgers can exist, and they are good for people who can choose to eat it, who can choose these options because they are aware of what they are choosing and why they are choosing it. They have this consciousness, but we need to think that we live in a world of inequalities. So it's unfair to put these solutions as solutions, because they are a path, you know, like they are a way of changing things. It's, like I said, it's not demonizing the products, it's like criticizing when they sell themselves as a solution, because the solutions should be structural, like should be more big. And also because, as I said, in Brazil, if you are buying probably one of these ultra-processed foods, you are giving money to the same industry that are deforesting and producing meat. So there are incoherences about it. It's not demonizing it. Of course, I am vegan, so I eat these products once in a while. But seeing them as a solution, it's what is tricky, especially because people are not eating less meat because are having more plant-based products, unfortunately.
No, I think that's excellent because it's fair enough. And again, it's not only about like the individual choices and how they're being sold to the individuals. And I will make a quick comparison. Okay, with beer without alcohol, is it relevant for people that, I mean, is it good? Is it good or bad? For us, in a way, it's like it's bad because there is a lot of brand stretching, and I think that's the issue. that I brought the alcohol issue here. Now you see so much alcohol marketing, but it's exactly the same brand, right? It's Heineken, it's Corona with the zero, exactly the same color, exactly the same brand. That was pretty much a loophole to keep on funding like sports events and so on, right? And why I'm bringing this example, because when we think about like the plant-based false solutions, we are talking about that segment of JBS, the Brazilian one. We are, we are the worst in terms of like meat production, right? We are coming on the top of the bad ones. And then when one of these big corporations start putting out in the market, we have now the plant-based for you. We know that's just like to greenwash their image and so on. And so it's kind of, it's the discussion, it's more about that than like the comparison of the product, the nutrient profile of each product, which for us in Brazil, it's a bit of the same discussions when you talk about ultra-processed foods, which can be a tricky one because, is all ultra-processed foods equally bad? And we don't want to get into the details of that discussion because I think what we are talking about, we want to maintain our percentage of ultra-processed food consumption still low. And fair enough, in countries in which you consume 60-70% of ultra-processed foods, that's part of your diet, you should go for the vegan whatever ones. But it's different for us because we need to protect how we eat and how we promote our food. And that includes like policies also in terms, how do you access food? Like what types of food do you have access to buy when you go out to work? And here you can talk about like solidarity kitchens, and you can talk about popular restaurants where you can serve good quality food. So you have lots of social technologies which are not the practical like ultra-processed package ready to make food for you that you buy in the supermarket. That's part of the problem, right? You should have other ways in which you can access food, not only the big supermarket chains. So I think that's part of the problem. And then again, another false solution, which is historically, it also talks about the model of consumption and production of today. It's about recycling. One of the problems about what I'm not recycling of food, I'm talking about food packaging now. Plastic crisis is a big crisis in the world. It's closely connected to the climate crisis, and we are talking about foods that receives lots of packaging as well and have been promoted. Now, as you just recycle it, most of it, it's a lie. Most of the plastics are not recyclable. So there are problems associated with ultra-processed foods in all parts of the chain. So it's more like this broader view on how this food system is organized, and are there alternative ways in which we can organize and give access to healthier food. We are here very concerned about how much greenwashing and health washing goes on by the major ones and basically the worst ones, and we are in Brazil, we should carry the flag of like we are the bad ones in that space.
I have a question of something that happened yesterday. I don't know if anyone can hear. Yesterday, apparently, it was voted, the first vote regarding labeling of meat and dairy should not be, mock meat and plant-based milk should not be called meat or milk. And I want to hear thoughts on what do you think about it. And sorry to put you on the spot.
So just to finish, because I think it's related, it's the structure of power that Paula was saying before. So there is just before answering you, there is an emblematic sentence that I think is like, even if we don't change the structure of power in the food system, if everyone stops eating meat, JBS will stop being the biggest meat producer and will be the biggest protein producer. So that's what we are talking about. We don't want to maintain the structure of power that we have in the agri-food system today, but of course, every solutions are welcome. But that's it. We don't have one solution. We need many. About your question, that's tricky. That's very tricky. We are, as IDEC, being closely watching the discussion in the Congress and also inside Anvisa, for example. And it's very tricky because it's very hard to understand what are the interests. So there are a lot of interests involved, and sometimes it seems that health, sustainability is the less interest important in the discussion. So there is the interest of the industry, of meat and milk industry, and they say they cannot be called milk because it's harm for us. It confuses the consumer. But then when you ask, then are plant-based products as big as milk products? No. So what's the problem? They don't know how to say. But at the same time, we understand the other side, this consumer confusion. Depending on the person, it could be true because a lot of plant-based products don't use just the word milk. They use, like, for example, a picture of a happy cow. They just say plant-based in small letters. So maybe the problem is not the word milk or meat, is being clear what you're talking about. But that's the last discussion we are seeing, you know? It's not about, it sometimes seems they don't want to be clear. They just want to fight which one is receiving more money, which is completely, it's strange, you know? Like, for example, I think nowadays everyone knows coconut milk. If you take off the milk, can be even more confusing. But at the same time, you don't need to have oat milk with a picture of a cow, you know? So it's being clear. Sometimes it's not the problem of the words, how it's used. And that's why, like, the food industry is very smart. Sometimes they want to be tricky. They want to confuse. If that was not the point, then I think we shouldn't even need to discuss about it. So it's very tricky, and it's hard to give an opinion. And our opinion in general, it's like, how can we, in a proposition, actually put health and sustainability there to be discussed and not different industries' interests? It's hard.
Yeah, I think her answer is so perfect about the milk one that I won't take that one. I think we're about to finalize. So just one last, hi, Vadangode. Sorry, just that I speak Danish, that I couldn't miss the opportunity to say hello. But I think I would like to close up with like this thing about fiscal measures. And I think it connects like the meat issue and with the ultra-processed food price versus the real food price, including veggies and vegetables and fruits, that in Brazil we have a trend that the ultra-processed foods are becoming cheaper and fruits and vegetables are becoming more expensive. Why that? Because we use most of our land for producing more commodities for export, for feeding cows as well, right? And that's a major problem. So that's why it's important to have like some structural decisions or some structural like the political will to change that in terms of we should stop subsidizing all the stuffs that are bad for our health and bad for the planet. And again, that goes from fossil fuels subsidies that over trillions to like soybeans commodities production, and to in Brazil we also subsidize soda production, right, which is crazy. But it's all about like how strong this lobby is, because can you imagine what type of world we could build with that money available for policies that are good for people and good for health and good for the planet? So we need to work around those power asymmetries, and that's part of the problem. Why is it so difficult to make those structural changes? I think it's about that at the end.
So we are finished our time, but I want to do a small comment that the Brazilian traditional food, it is plant-based. We have rice and beans, cassava, and this is a true solution. It's not a false one. So it's a complex problem. So we don't have any easy solutions for these complex problems. So to finish, I want to thank you, Paula and Samantha, and our hosts here in this pavilion. So we're going to keep this discussion in other occasions. This is something for warm up, literally. And so I want to thank you all for staying here today with us. Sorry for the heat. And so thank you so much.